This case actually rocked the small town that it happened in. Our case starts in Blackfoot, Idaho. 21-year-old newlywed Stacy Larson was working the night shift at a local convenience store. February 28th, 1987, some of Stacy's friends decided to rent some movies from the store that Stacy was working at. While walking into the store, Stacy's friends are actually almost hit by a pickup truck that was driving manically, considering the condition of the roads this time of year. So Stacy's friends just assume it's a drunk driver that almost hit them in this parking lot. I mean, it's the middle of the night. When they walk into the convenience store, they see Stacy's purse, her car still in the parking lot, but no Stacy. Her friends call the police immediately. When Blackfoot police arrived just after midnight, they discover that about $200 was missing from the register. Stacy's friends tell police about a dark green pickup truck who almost hit them in the parking lot, and that the person inside had long dark hair. A local dentist who had volunteered to help was slowly driving around the area when he passed two dumpsters on the side of the road. That's when he noticed the blood-stained snow. She was dumped in the snow near the dumpsters and had been shot multiple times.
What the heck?
The sun was beginning to rise, and the snow she was surrounded by could possibly start to melt soon if the temperatures rose. Police noted the truck tire marks around the body and two sets of footprints. There were also .38 caliber revolver shell casings around the body, as well as an 18-inch long hair on Stacy's sweater that didn't match her hair. Detectives note that Stacy's watch that she usually wore was missing off of her wrist. After digesting what they had found, police come up with an early idea of what might have happened. They think that Stacy somehow fought off her attacker in the truck, and she opened the passenger door and began running away. Her attacker then chased after her, firing multiple rounds at her, but missing. It wasn't until one hit her in the arm that Stacy fell down in the snow. Stacy's killer then needed to reload his revolver, so he dumped the old casings out on the ground and then reloaded. So Stacy, who was still on the ground at this point while her attacker is reloading, maneuvers her way to the dumpsters, police think for protection. But her attacker actually followed her and shot her from close range 2 more times. The attacker then gets back in his car and leaves. But Stacy's wounds weren't immediately fatal, so she sat in the freezing cold bleeding out until she passed away. Police obviously run through early suspects, suspicious and creepy customers from the convenience store, but all immediate suspects are cleared. There's no lead on the green truck, no lead at all in the case, until 16 days later. On the night of March 16th, 1987, 23-year-old Nolan Haddon is also working at a convenience store, but this time in Idaho Falls. Nolan's brother, Clay, who had never been to Nolan's work, decided to randomly visit him that night. Nolan was very active, the youngest of 3 boys. He was friendly and loved to be outdoors. He had many friends. Clay, his brother, says that he left the store around 10:30 p.m. The next day, around 6 a.m., another convenience store clerk shows up for the morning shift at Nolan's work. She was surprised to find the front door to the store unlocked and the telephone was off the hook, dangling from the spiral cord. The new clerk is surprised to find the front door open, as I said, and the cash register was opened, and the clerk noticed bloody footprints on the floor. She decides to call her boss, who shows up, and they found Nolan on the floor in a pool of blood in the store's walk-in refrigerator room.
What?
So they are both actually surprised to find a faint pulse on Nolan upon checking him. So the owner applies pressure on the wound until the ambulance arrives, and doctors note that Nolan had been shot multiple times. And as this is happening, Idaho Falls police begin investigating the scene. They lift 149 prints, and they note that $160 was taken from the register, as well as some cigarettes and some lighters. They recover 5 .38 caliber bullets from the walk-in cooler, noting that some of them hadn't hit Nolan. They also found some burned paper bags and a lighter in the refrigerator as well. It's noted that the last transaction on the store's register was at 10:17 p.m. The store was supposed to close at 11 p.m. And that's when police think the attacker showed up, took Nolan into the cooler, and shot him 5 times. 1 bullet severed his spine. Police figure out that the paper bags had most likely been lit on fire by Nolan himself, who was most likely trying to stay warm the whole entire night in the cooler.
No way.
Until he was found the next morning. Police notify Nolan's family about the attack, also recognize the similarities between their case and the murder case that happened in Blackfoot just a little over 2 weeks earlier. Both convenience store workers, both night shifts, both shot, both with 38 caliber bullets. They sent the bullets to comparisons and they confirmed that they matched. It was the same shooter who had shot Stacy and Blackfoot. The only thing stumping detectives was that Stacy had, it looked like, been attempted to be sexually assaulted and Nolan had not. So why would a serial killer cross genders? Police discovered that Nolan had actually switched shifts with a woman who usually worked that night. Back at the hospital, Nolan was fighting for his life, but the hypothermia and loss of blood overcame him. Panic begins to spread throughout East Idaho. All sorts of calls began pouring into police. Chaos began ensuing. Sifting through these tips was hard, and it made it even worse when a man falsely confessed that he had done these killings. So police feel the burden of trying to close this case. Local convenience stores in surrounding counties were warned. The killer was still on the loose, and this was his MO. Police videotape and stake out both Stacy and Nolan's funerals in hopes of finding suspicious behavior. And then on March 19th, the day of Nolan's funeral, only a few days, it's actually only 3 days after Nolan was shot, the police department receives a missing person report from a concerned husband in Idaho Falls. 34-year-old teacher Susan had stayed home from work that morning, but had actually had to head to the school to drop off the lesson plan. She never came home. When Idaho Falls releases the image of Susan to spread the word and spread awareness, calls come in from witnesses who had seen her at a grocery store by herself that morning. A searches started for Susan as police feel like it might be related to the other murders happening. So 24 hours after Susan had been last seen, her van is found abandoned on some random road in Idaho Falls. Police collect long brown hairs that weren't Susan's in the van. They find her checkbook in the van and it shows several checks written out totaling around $2,000. It appears as if Susan's abductor had made her drive around town to different banks to pull cash out. Police find scrape marks, rocks, and grass under the frame of the car and the wheel. They notice that an area of fence around this place looked as if it had been driven through, and they actually come upon some school assignments on the ground. While scanning the area, an officer sees Susan's body, and she had been shot 9 times and sexually assaulted. Susan had been abducted from the grocery store parking lot that day around 7 a.m. Once down, the attacker unloaded his revolver, dropping casings once again, and the attacker then continued to fire at an already wounded Susan. The 38 caliber bullets are matched to the previous cases. It was the same attacker. The farmhand that was near the field where Susan was shot out in the middle of nowhere had heard the gunshots. He cautiously made his way out to the main road just in time to see a red van. He realized he knew the driver because the person driving Susan's red minivan back into town was the farmhand's own cousin, Paul Ezra Rhoades. He grew up on 6th Street in Idaho Falls, and he was introduced by his father and grandpa to drugs at the age of 10 years old.
Whoa.
Paul dropped out of high school at age 16 and began working for his uncle until he became heavily addicted to meth in the 1980s. Paul Rhoades was in trouble for breaking into a lingerie shop, performing a sexual act on a store mannequin in the shop, and then shooting that said mannequin with a 38 caliber bullet. Detectives head to Paul's home only to find his mom there, and she claims that Paul had come home and stolen her car and then left. The trucker calls police in Nevada and says that he thinks he saw Paul crash his car, get out of it, and drop a gun on the ground and then leave. Nevada police head to the scene and they discover the revolver, the exact gun used in all 3 murders back in Idaho. They call Idaho police and let them know that Paul Ezra Rhoades, their wanted fugitive, was playing blackjack inside one of their casinos after crashing his car outside. So police head into the casino and arrest Paul, who still had blood on his clothes from Susan's murder.
And he was just sitting down playing blackjack
with all the money he had collected. And he had Stacy's wristwatch in his jacket. Paul says, "Yes, I did it all." He lays his head down on the table and goes to sleep. Paul Ezra Rhoades pleads guilty to all 3 murders and is charged separately for all 3. He is sentenced to life for Nolan's murder and to death for Stacy and Susan's murder. So actually on November 18th, 2011 at 9:15 a.m., Paul Ezra Rhoades was executed by lethal injection in Idaho.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's the last person to be executed on death penalty in Idaho. His last words right on before getting executed was this: To Bert, who is Susan's husband, and I'm purposely leaving their last name out. I am sorry for the part I played in your wife's death. For Haddon and Baldwin, which is Stacy and Nolan, I can't help you. You still have to keep looking. And then after sitting in prison for a couple years, said, actually, I only did Susan's murder.
So something's fishy.
Something's fishy. But someone does at trial come forward and say, no, I saw more than just Paul in that van. He then said goodbye to his mom, and he turned to the executioner and uttered, I forgive you. I really do.
I think what interests me the most was the end. Out of nowhere, it just got like...
How he got caught or how he said he didn't do it?
No, how he said he didn't do it. Out of nowhere, it was just like...
Yeah, this is scary in a community. It's scary. It's terrifying, and it happens all the time.